Deviant Art.
Hello, everybody. This is Alvaro Cortez Jr., aka Lance Danger, and I'm here for part two of my Deviant Art retrospective. I'm just gonna go every year and whatnot through my Deviant Art, just to kind of have that documented online, I guess, because I am considering shutting down my account um, once it becomes 20-year old. Not probably soon. I think it probably already did, but it's been a good run. But the whole AI debacle, I have to get more information. But last time I heard, Deviant Art was only letting you opt out one post at a time to use your art for um, being fed into their AI system to train the AI. So I have like 899 posts there. So uh, I don't have the time for that. So I'm probably going to have to shut down my Deviant Art account. It was a good run. F in the comments for my Deviant Art account if I do get to shut it down. But anyway, last time we went through January of 2004, and we left off in the first post of February of 2004. I explained how this was an art trade with an old colleague of mine that wanted a girl riding a dinosaur facing off another dinosaur. Let me just go ahead and make the screen. There you go. I had shown a quite a bigger magnified screen of this illustration in the last video. I already spoke enough of this one, so let's go ahead to the next one. And of course, this was a Battle Chasers fan art. You see Gully and I forget the name of the golem. Like, pardon me, Calibretto. I almost said Riquelto from Berserk. But yes, Calibretto. Two of my favorite characters from Joe Madureira's Battle Chaser, which, funny enough, recently started being printed again with a different artist. I haven't read it yet. I do have the new issues, 10, 11, and 12, if I'm not mistaken. Joe Madureira is still writing it. It's surreal to be in 2023 and finally see some new Battle Chaser comics, but that's almost been the norm for this comic series. Let's not lie to ourselves. It was always it was chronically late for a long time there to begin with. And part of me kind of still didn't kind of forgave the way that Madureira ended that first run, pretty much saying, I'm burned out on the comics. I'm starting a new video game thing, so whatever. Kind of um, announcement that he made on his website back then. I'm happy that he eventually made it pretty well into the video gaming industry. Eventually, he would return to do stuff for Marvel, like Avenging Spider-Man. I think it was Savage Wolverine. I think. Like, I know he did that Spider-Man comic, which was pretty good actually. I really enjoyed his art. I've always enjoyed his Spider-Man art. He also did the I'm blanking out today. The Inhumans as well with Charles Soule, one of the last projects he did at Marvel. He did a cover here and there for DC as well. So it's kind of nice to at least see Battle Chasers come back. Once I read it, I'll probably give my thoughts on it. But yeah, Battle Chasers definitely at least at that time, was a huge favorite of mine. Let's see what else. This was actually a portrait of a friend of mine. What's hilarious is, I wonder. Yeah, I didn't really write much in the descriptions back then. Oh, actually, I see no AI. Hmm. I guess it does have the default now of not having it included in AI. That's interesting. I have to read a lot of. I have to get up to speed on a lot of things. But anyway, this illustration was based on the likeness of a friend of mine. The funny thing is that um, all of our friends were like, "Oh my goodness, it looks exactly like her. It looks exactly like her." And when she saw the illustration, she was like, "Is that supposed to be me? That looks like nothing at all like me." I was like, "Well, okay, you're welcome, I suppose." Yeah, I haven't spoken to her in years. Of course, a sketch of Rurouni Kenshin, Himura Kenshin, aka the Hitokiri Batosai. One of my all-time favorite characters. This is probably one of my favorite sketches of all time. I actually feel like downloading this image and digitally inking it, because even for back then it looks pretty nice in my opinion. What was this? February 3rd, 2004. Well, yeah, let me go ahead and download this illustration. Where do I download? There we go. I ran ahead and downloaded that one. Let's see what's next. Oh my goddess, of course. This one looks very small. Let me try and embiggen for any Simpsons fan. There you go. A little, again, like I said back then, the dimensions, the resolution was a lot different for the monitors. So this was actually very big sized illustration way back then for all those like old school monitors that look like the old box TVs. Not so much for these high tech flat screen monitors and whatnot. But yeah, actually, I gave this sketch to my sister because she really liked this sketch. Probably one of my favorite sketches too. This was when I was really getting into not just anime but manga as well. Once manga was slowly being available to me back then, because again, this was when I did this sketch in particular, and the Rurouni Kenshin sketch as well, if I'm not mistaken. This was more like the late 90s, because I just took advantage and started scanning and uploading a bunch of my older sketches onto Deviant Art to, just put stuff on my account and also kind of share them as well. I did these like in the late 90s, and in the late 90s, anime and manga was not how it is nowadays. Like in the late 90s was when it was starting to become a lot more visible in the US, thanks to cable and whatnot. And of course, breakthrough animes like Sailor Moon, Dragon Ball Z, the original Dragon Ball, Rurouni Kenshin. There we go. So back in the dark ages, it was very hard to actually find manga and anime, especially in Puerto Rico. especially if you were me in Puerto Rico. And of course, for some reason in DeviantArt, it was popular to post screenshots of your home screen on your computer. Wow, this is very nostalgic right here. You can see like the little Yahoo Messenger, MSN Messenger, guitar tuner, of course, because I do play guitar. I haven't played guitar in years though. Megascan was, of course, the scanning device that I had back then. Power DVD, because I used to do, of course, my CD mix, of course. And I would experiment with little videos even back then, every now and again. And of course, that's Kenshin and Kaoru. This was taken from the manga, I believe, and someone edited it into a wallpaper. Continuing on, this is probably the first Fred Peterson, the Mighty Warlord related illustration. So this is like one of the first times that I actually started promoting the comic. If you're familiar with my comic, this is one of the main characters, Jane Marie Jackson. There we go. I still have this sketch actually. One day I'll probably go through that sketchbook where I have this and other like very early sketches of Fred Peterson, the Mighty Warlord. Funny enough, I started with Jane rather than Fred. But then again, Jane really is one of my favorite characters in the story. You can see quite a bit of a different style back then. And again, this is more like a character design sketch, getting used to this version of the character. If you haven't heard it from other videos, Fred Peterson, the Mighty Warlord, started out with the characters being much older in the comic book series I did in school notebooks. So when I decided to do like an actual like comic book, before I was introduced to the world of web comics, I was reworking the story into having them younger and pretty much start the story from the beginning compared to how it was in the comic books I made in my notebooks, where he was already an adult and quite a few years had passed already that he was Warlord. So I decided to go like from the start, present the origin, clean slate, and this was one of the first designs I made of a younger college age Jane compared to like a mid-20s Jane. I always liked the sketch. I actually feel like redoing this sketch now that I look at it. I'm way too harsh on my art sometimes. And there's actually another sketch featuring Donna, which is one of the favorite side characters in the book to many people. People just really love that character, Donna. Like, I can't really make out what it says there much. But again, I'm going to more than likely go through that sketchbook one day and do a sketchbook video of Fred Peterson, the Mighty Warlord. But again, Donna, one of the more favorite supporting characters. And Jane, of course, they're very close friends. I really like this sketch too, just because of how close they are, as friends. Not so much technically, of course, because there's so much to fix about that illustration, but there's something there. Also, when I did these sketches, I had just recovered from a bad shoulder injury and from not really drawing for a long time, so there was that also. Interesting, there's no option to make this one a little bigger, so I guess I have to do it through here. I have to rescan a lot of these, but this is also from that same sketchbook. This is Fred and Tom Blair. Tom Blair, which joins the cast of Warlord in chapter 14 of the webcomic, if I'm not mistaken. Also a favorite among the readers. In Fred's car, chilling. Tom, of course, informing Fred that there is a girl crossing the street, because he is a scoundrel. And Fred is just like kind of just looks just to look, and he's just like, whatever, I'm drinking my soft drink, dude. I do not know what is going on in that background. Like, I see like that probably was like Dragon Ball inspired, like the top of that building, the top of that floppy building. Fun times. And I believe I saw this sketch actually in the previous video, the pencil sketch of this character called the Whip. And it was actually colored by pen name Cosmic Crayons, who was part of that non-profit organization, the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. They took it and added some color and effects on it, which was really cool. I thought this was one of the coolest things ever when it got colorized like that. So, okay, this one. Again, resolution isn't that great. Right. And if this looks familiar, this is one of the early versions of page 1 of chapter 1 of Fred Peterson, The Mighty Warlord. Like, this is the actual page that's on the webcomic. What year was this? Yeah, we're still in February of 2004. So yeah, like a good 2 years, give or take, before I started uploading it on that webcomic. I had these pages done. I had essentially the prologue and issue 1 completely drawn by the time that I decided to turn it into a webcomic. Let me try and make it bigger. Like, if you've followed my art, this is a very familiar page. But for the people who haven't seen it, there you go. It's a little bit different because I did different shadings on it, because I was going to originally consider printing it in black and white and doing it kind of in a manga style. So that was me, like, one of my very first attempts at adding digital effects to my illustration to try and make it more of a manga looking comic. Back then, I wasn't completely sure of computer coloring and all that stuff. But of course, I ended up doing it anyway, so I guess the machines won in that war. And again, if you've read my webcomic, Another familiar page, the introduction of Funny Bone in the webcomic. Funny Bone, of course, a very popular character in Warlord, the anti-hero, and the foil for Fred Peterson for a little while there too. He's been appearing here and there throughout the series. Actually, recently made a comeback in the series in the latest chapter of Fred Peterson, the Mighty Warlord. Of course, the text is all different, and again, trying to emulate some shading. This page didn't come out half bad for the time that I did it. Okay, Ultraviolet. This is actually one of my favorite illustrations I've done, and it was one of the first illustrations I ever colored digitally. Used some filters in there too. Ultraviolet, again, one of those characters from CF Comics, from the CFF, the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation, those comic book zines from back then. Yep, that's just when I was starting to start computer coloring. I actually really liked this illustration. This illustration was actually used in one of the cystic fibrosis comics for like an ad or something like that. So that's fun. Right, are we still in February here? Yeah, February 26th. Okay, that was the last one. So I'll just go ahead and end it again on this first illustration of the new month, March 1st, and then just continue on a later video. Let me try and make it a little bigger. Again, another one of those characters that was created by my colleague Jeff Cook, I believe. That the same creator of the other character that we saw earlier and last time called the Whip. She was called Electra. As far as I know, she was existed before the Daredevil universe Electra. Her powers, I think, was electric based, so the name actually went with her powers as well. I kind of like this illustration a bit, at least the composition of it. I like the idea of it. Let me see. Yeah, it was created by my dear colleague Jeff Cook, rest in peace. As it says here, now here I'm starting to open up more in the descriptions, aside from being introverted even in the descriptions online of my own artwork. You know, at least now I can get a little backstory of what I actually did here. The inspiration was a pinup that I had seen in a magazine ad, and I just kind of modeled it after the pose the model was doing, and again experimenting, added some shade on it. And when you see PSP there, it's not PlayStation Portable, though that would have been awesome. That was another art-based software, another graphic software called Paint Shop Pro, I believe. If I'm not mistaken, Paint Shop Pro was a software that was developed by Corel, which has historically been like the competition to Adobe. And it was like kind of like the entry level Corel Draw. Like it didn't have like the power of Corel Draw, but if you wanted to like experiment like I was doing back then, you couldn't ask for anything more. Like I believe I had bought it on sale back when um Electronic Boutique. If you remember Electronic Boutique back then, a little backstory. There used to be like a handful of different used video games stores that were around in the late 90s and the aughts. You know, there was your GameStop, there was your Electronic Boutique, there was your Babage, and a lot of them, even GameStop, used to actually sell used computer programs aside from used games. So I saw this program for like 10-15 bucks, and I was like, well, 15 bucks is a lot cheaper than 100, and I wasn't working at the time yet, so 15 bucks it was. Paint Shop Pro it was. So again, like for someone that was just starting to get into computer coloring and computer editing, like that was a very good thing to start with. It wasn't until after that, and when I started doing Warlord as a webcomic itself, that I actually started working stuff in in Photoshop and whatnot. But we'll get to that story eventually. Like, you're about to see like the first illustrations that I colored with Photoshop. Actually, now that I'm seeing here, I was actually corrected in the comments like 3 years later that Jeff Cook wasn't actually the creator of Elektra. The creator of Elektra was Jeffrey Barker, and he printed the. Oh, okay, so that's actually the name of this person here. So that's cool, actually, to go through that, because I honestly forgotten about all that. But there you go, Jeffrey Barker. I should edit this, though. I don't know if I'm going to shut down this page. I don't know if I should even bother editing it. I guess we'll see. Anyway, I'm going to end the video here for now. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you all next time for the rest of March. Thank you, and see you then.